Eighth graders, day 2, 8th grade science test prep. You'll once again have 60 seconds to read each question carefully and decide on an answer. Your first question starts now. Okay, what is the density of a 64-gram iron cube that displaces 8 milliliters of water? Lots of little clues in this question, so let's see what this is. Key word here in this question is displaces. So if I have an iron cube, if I asked you, is iron dense or not very dense? Most of you should say that iron is pretty dense. So we're looking for a pretty, I don't know, decent sized number. But if I were to put this cube into a container of water, what it means to displace is how much will the water level go up. And then in this case, it goes up by 8 milliliters. So when I put the cube in, the volume rises 8 milliliters. So the other thing that comes into play is this equation right here. Density equals mass divided by volume. The mass being 64 grams divided by the volume being 8 milliliters. We get a simple calculation of 8 grams per milliliter, and that is the density of iron. Next question, 60 seconds, begin. The following table shows properties of 4 different sample materials. One of the materials is cork, a type of wood that floats in water. So here's the 4 samples here with mass and volume. Given that the density of water is 1 gram per milliliter, which of the samples is most likely cork? Well, in order to float, something has to have a density less than 1. So which one of these 4 has a density less than 1? So if we know that density equals mass divided by volume, we should be able to quickly decide which one has a density of less than 1. So the first one here, 89 divided by 10, gives me a density of 89 grams per 1 milliliter. Choice 1 is out. 2, and you can do these quickly. 26 grams divided by 10, 2.6 grams per 1 milliliter. This one's out. 24 divided by 100. So you don't have to be a math wizard to understand that this is going to give me a number of less than 1. So sample 3 is the cork in this case. It's the only one with a density calculation less than 1. Next question, 60 seconds, begin. Which of the following best describes an atom? Protons and electrons grouped together in a random pattern. Protons and electrons grouped together in an alternating pattern. A core of protons and neutrons surrounded by electrons. A core of electrons and neutrons surrounded by protons. Well, those of you who know anything about an atom, we have over here, the picture probably gives it away, but the nucleus consists of protons and neutrons, which is where the mass of the atom is, and then surrounding it is actually this cloud. So if I had the nucleus that consists of protons, neutrons, and electrons, or protons and neutrons, the electrons are actually arranged outside of the atom in a cloud, and we'll talk more about that when you get to chemistry in 10th grade. But the choice here is letter C. Next question, 60 seconds, begin. When magnesium metal is burned in the presence of oxygen, magnesium oxide is produced. The properties of magnesium oxide are different than the individual properties of magnesium oxygen because magnesium oxide is, well, let's think about this for a second. Magnesium's a metal. It looks like a metal. If you've seen it, it looks like a sample of metal, and it has its own properties, like it's metallic looking, and maybe it conducts electricity, or maybe it conducts heat. Well, oxygen is a odorless, colorless gas that's in our atmosphere that you breathe. So those are the properties of those two. When I combine them and produce a new substance that actually, if you were to look at it up close, it's a gray powder or a gray substance, it behaves completely differently. The reason is it's now a compound. So when you combine two or more elements into a new substance called magnesium oxide in this case, those will always have different properties than the individual atoms that make them up. So C is our choice. 60 seconds, begin. What is the name of the indicated atom in the acetic acid molecule above? It has It does not matter if you know what acetic acid is or not. It does not matter that you understand what this compound is or how it's structured or how it's bonded together. The only thing that matters is that we know the name of that capital C, or this capital C for that matter. Knowing your periodic table, you don't have to memorize every element, but one element that you do have to know, and you need to know a lot about it, is the element carbon, which is one of the most important elements in the universe, but letter A is the correct choice. 60 seconds to evaluate this question. Ready, begin. A diagram of the periodic table of elements is shown below. In which region of the table would nonmetals be found? The periodic table can be divided into several different places. There's lots of different groups of elements with different properties, but there's two real basic categories, the metals and the nonmetals. What you got to look for is this staircase line. And I'll highlight it just a little bit better here. This staircase separates the metals from the nonmetals. So everything to the left of the staircase is considered a metal. So if the element is in any one of these boxes, including down here, including over here, it is considered a metal. If it's in any of these boxes, these are considered the non-metals because their properties are different. And there's lots of other things about them that are different, but for now, this group above the staircase and to the right of the staircase is considered non-metals, so we will choose region C. Next question, 60 seconds, begin. Which class of elements best conducts electricity? This should be or could be a easy one. Honestly, if you think of like what a wire is made out of, metals are those elements that conduct electricity. The nonmetals, like we just talked about on the right side of the periodic table, are actually the ones that don't conduct, and the noble gases don't conduct or react real well either. So let me erase that. The choice is letter A, metals. Next question, 60 seconds, begin. In comparison of metals and nonmetals, metals tend to have. So we got a bunch of statements here that describe the differences between metals and nonmetals. Before we read those, let's just take a look at the metals versus nonmetals. Metals are conductors, they're shiny, they're dense. Nonmetals, non-conductors. A lot of times they're gases, which means they're not very dense. The one that's tricky, they mention the word melting point over here, so I know that's coming. These can have a high melting point. Sometimes some of them are lower, but we'll see what the statements say. Maybe we'll find out what the answer is. Lower melting points and greater conductivity than nonmetals. That could be the choice. Back to that melting points one is going to throw us off, I think. Lower conductivity, I'm going to throw that one out right away. Higher density and lower melting points, well, this one could be correct. Greater conductivity and higher melting points than nonmetals. I tend to like this answer the best, and here's why. I know they conduct. I also know that a lot of these are gases, which means, so these are all gases here, which means that a majority of these melt at very low temperatures. I know that's hard to explain, but the reason they exist as gases is because they have already melted, so to speak, and turned into gases just based on our own Earth's temperature. So I'm going to say D here, and we'll go with that for now. So letter D.